Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'm going to film from inside of the house because I don't know if you can see the sky outside, but there is so much smoke from Canada coming into our area. The sky is just a haze. You can look directly at the sun. It's weird. I've never looked directly at the sun, but it's a lot smaller than I thought. And you can smell the smoke. It gets in my eyes. It makes me my eyes burn. So I'm inside the house today, and behind me is another one of my husband's grandmother. We live on there. Oops, hold on just a second. That was our Jesus clock. So what was I saying? We live on my husband's grandparents' property, and his grandmother planted surprises all over the property that bloom different times in the spring and summer. And this is another one of my favorite ones. We have a big window right in our entryway, and that when we walk in our house, that's what we get to look at. So we just feel so blessed by her and her just appreciation for the beauty that God has abundantly provided for us, and she's displayed it all over the property in really clever spots. So anyway, I've been sitting on this message for a couple of days. God let me process and wrestle with him the last couple of days. This one was really hard for me. And not too long back, I posted a video that I would never doubt again, and then just like the Israelites after he parted the sea, did something amazing, shortly after I'm questioning and doubting again. So, but he uses that, and he knew that was going to happen. And there's grace for that, but he teaches us. He teaches us in that wrestling. And I didn't understand the message. I read it 5 times, and I had to go buy a computer. And we live out in the country, so it's over an hour drive each way. And I had lots of time with him, and he just kept telling me I will understand it in time. And to go back on his promises. And one of his greatest promises is, I will never leave you or forsake you. And I just can't believe that he would bring me this far in my faith journey and just abandon me here without bringing it to completion, what he's trying to teach. So I'll probably have to push pause lots of times. I'm not really prepared in the order I'm going to talk about this. There's lots of dots to connect over a long period of time that kind of all grow to this point in this message. So that revelation just came to me this morning, and throughout the night it was kind of wave upon wave of revelation over different things. So I'll try to touch on those. I don't want to make the video too long, so it's going to be challenging. It might have to be in 2 parts. So I'm going to start by saying, this message I received, I guess it was, hold on, let me look. Okay, so I received the message on Saturday, June 3rd, and I stayed in the bedroom that morning probably 3 or 4 hours. I was really having a hard time, and I was trying to imagine all the possible scenarios of what could be occurring and what could be happening to me. Was God really speaking? Because this challenged me on a very foundational level of who God is, and it scared me, and it made me want to flee him. And I have felt that way a couple times in my walk, where the fear of not understanding him correctly and seeing him, feeling like something was revealed about him that's like a flaw, and being scared of him. So let me give you an example. So I have a friend, and he and his wife, so I went through a big trauma in my life. I moved back home to where I live now, and God strategically placed these 2 people in my life. I teach dance, and they started taking dance lessons from me, and they both happen to be pastors of 2 churches. And so I started going to the wife's church, and they took dance lessons for maybe 8 or 9 years. So we became really, really close friends. And I told them both at different times about, the trauma I'd experienced. And the husband, he took it upon himself to read or to pray over me from Ephesians 3:14 through 21. that prayer over my life for years. And I believe that what's happening now is just an answer to that prayer. And you know, God put that prayer in his heart for a reason too. Like, he's in control of all of it. Well, that person passed away not too long ago. And he was a really healthy person. He was not very old. I mean, around 60. And he developed a lung disease that normally you'd get from smoke or secondhand smoke or something, but scar tissue was taking over his lungs. And he's thin and trim, walked every day and prayed over his community. Just a very faithful person, very routine person, very dependable person. And so suddenly, I mean, he had a cough for a few years, and finally they diagnosed what it was. And by then it progressed pretty badly, and the only cure was a lung transplant. Well, he had to go through all these things to get on the transplant list, which he did. And his lungs ended up collapsing, and they flew him in a helicopter to a big hospital. And he was 40th on the lung transplant list, but he was only there, I don't even know, a day. And suddenly there was a match, and it happened to be like on his birthday, around his birthday, and he successfully, like, his body accepted the lungs. Everything was going so smoothly. It seemed so miraculous. And everyone was just praising the Lord. And he went back around, he was allowed to come home. They had to live close to the hospital for a while. And he came home for Thanksgiving, went back, and just got raving reviews from the doctor, just how quickly he was progressing, how great he was doing. So we were all on this big high. And then I got a text message that he had passed. And he had a heart attack. He went out to take out lunch, and he didn't come back. And his wife got worried and went and looked for him. By then he was, I think, already in the ambulance, and he was gone. So that was really confusing. You know, he came to, I go to a pretty spirit-filled, I mentioned that, home group. We meet together, and he got prayed over, and everyone saw him as healed. And we all had a lot of questions after that, because he was healed, and but he still passed away from a heart attack. So what did all of that mean? And is God in control of that? Like, he is, but was that the enemy being sneaky? What was that? So what they didn't understand, though, was they thought that he died from the issues with the lungs. And so they felt like he suffered because maybe we weren't mature enough in our understanding of healing and our faith journey, that we failed him. So there's just a lot of confusion surrounding that. Let me pause for a moment, see where to go from here. Another example, not too long ago, the Lord had me do this assignment, and he wanted me to go to a home, and he's going to tell me when to go, and he gave me instructions on what to say and what to take. And I went, and I got to a crossroads, and I doubted him, and I turned around, and I got lost. Like, I didn't get lost, but I kind of lost his voice. I couldn't hear him anymore, and I was kind of traveling around the wilderness. And he told me to, like, I finally sat down at a gas station and just, like, listened for him. And it's easier to me to listen when I write. And he gave me instructions to go back to the first road that he showed me and retrace my steps. And as I was doing that and following bits and pieces of directions I got along the way and applying them, there was one that said, go 3/4 of a mile, stop, look to the right, and you'll know what to do. So I did that from a certain point and counted 3/4 of a mile, and I stopped and I looked, and there was a mountain with a solid rock, like a huge boulder rock at the top. And I thought, well, that's cool. God is unchanging, okay? So he's unchanging. And sometimes we don't understand, like last night I was watching a sermon about, if you don't know the purpose of something, you're going to misuse it. If we don't understand God's purposes and things, we're going to abuse it, misuse it, misunderstand it, and we're going to have fear. And we're going to miss a lot. So he's unchanging, okay? So that's a principle that can apply always. God is unchanging. So then I drove a little bit further, and there was a double rainbow that talks about God's promises. He's unchanging. His promises, they're unchanging. They're promises. He's not a God that he should lie. That's who he is, solid rock, okay? Drove a little bit further, and there was an eagle. And the eagle represents our hope that we have in him. We can soar above, when we stand on the solid rock, trust in his promises. We have wings like eagles. And so that lesson was really important, and I'll share the whole journey of that. But the next day I found out that right before I turned around, had I kept going, I would have arrived at a site where a 15-year-old boy, where I substitute teach, was shot. And I found that out the next morning. And I felt like, was I supposed to bring Jesus to that situation? Did I fail? Because I doubted him right there at that crossroads, and I turned around and I thought, because if God wanted me to come this way, he would have taken me a different way to get here. Because he took me a really roundabout way. I just listened to his voice, went right to this place. As soon as I saw where I was, I doubted and said, if God would have wanted me to be here, then he would have taken me this way. So I turned around. Had I kept going at less than 1/10 of a mile, and right at that, pretty much that moment, a boy was running across the field and he was shot. So that's another time where I was afraid of God. I was afraid to meet with him the next morning. I was confused by who he was. I was scared of myself, that I could blow it that big, that he would let me blow it that big. So those are some examples. I'm going to go to the next video. So that's part 1, and I'm going to get into some scripture and some things that he's been, I can see now, preparing me to understand something about him that's important. And he's revealing mysteries. He's revealing things about himself that have been hidden away by doctrines of man, I believe, and misunderstood. For some reason, he's allowed them to be misunderstood, but now he's wanting the truth of who he is. In a time such as this, he's held people in grace for a long time, but things are getting real. He's coming back, and he wants people to be ready to understand, I think, what's about to happen, and that he can be trusted, in the midst. He holds it all in his hands. So I'm going to go to the next video.